Kelly Zitlow closed 349 loans for $106 million. Kelly, congratulations for a spectacular year.
Can you see me?
Kelly?
Oh, there she is.
Yes, there she is, girl.
Hey.
So congratulations. And she said she wants to increase her loans by 10%. So that'd be almost 373 loans. Of course, my number one metric is how many TCAs. 2,442 families served with more than price, served with advice. You know, I have heard of this book, but The Code of Extraordinary Minds, pretty awesome, Kelly. Do we all need to read it?
It's mind blowing. Like, I just love it. And yeah, and he's got a podcast. I listen to it almost every single day. It's just great thought leaders in our country and the world that just kind of pour into me. So great book. Love it.
Awesome. Well, I am going to pick it up, and looks like I have a podcast to add. I love your quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So coming from you, that is so true. Favorite mortgage coach feature is Mortgage Coach Live. So I love that. So let's do your, what's your rate? Ring, ring.
Hi, this is Kelly.
So wait, time out. Josh, ring, ring is for Josh to sound like your typical consumer, and then you go, Kelly. Josh Bennell, ring, ring.
Hi, Kelly. I was referred to you by Joan Pate, the best realtor of all time. She said that I should call you and see what your interest rates are for my new home.
Well, first and foremost, let's make sure we're educating our realtors, right? Because that is a big piece of this puzzle. But go ahead, Josh. So, hey, Josh, thank you so much for your call. Oh my gosh, have you worked with Joan in the past? And guys, this is important because part of my process, which is reflective of my favorite quote, is I'm going to break down barriers and get to know them as fast as I can and build trust just by listening. So that high trust call, that initial, I want to know and ascertain their most important thing. And if I can figure that out in 2 to 3 minutes, then it really does change this rate conversation. So I just want to be sure that that context, that's my approach every single time. If somebody asks me the rate, which you are, I'll say something along the lines of, Josh, that is such a great question. And after lending for 24 years, there are so many different rate options. A lot of the interest rate is driven based on the program, etc. What we do is a lot different than what most mortgage lenders do. Once we get into it and I know more about you and your goals and your family and really what your objectives are, we're going to build out a cost analysis, and we're going to show you not only the maximum you can qualify for, but we're going to get into the difference based on different price points and down payment options, etc. And we're going to show you not just payment, but what that means over time. I'm a big believer in transparency. I think that the technology is great in this world today, but when it comes to home lending, I do not believe that you push a button and you get a home loan. This is your first home and you're buying a $400,000 house. That's a big deal. And I want to be sure that you're empowered and you know the right questions to ask as you go through this process. That's really what I say and how I kind of lead into it every single time.
Love it. Awesome.
Josh, did you want to have a follow-up to that? I think I'd love to hear what a follow-up question to that, because I think there's a lot more that Kelly has in her upper sleeve on this topic.
Yeah. So Kelly, what you mentioned different programs and maximum qualifying. How do we go about figuring that out, and what programs do you normally recommend for first-time home buyers?
So there are a variety of programs out there. A lot of what will make sense will depend on your credit profile, your down payment goals, and if you're going to be getting a gift or using down payment assistance. So as we move into the next parts of the process, which is going to be completing a loan application, we're going to pull your credit and ask you for some documentation. Once we get into that, we're really going to give you the full strategies that are available to you.
Got it.
So, the things that I noticed right away, first, I loved what you said, Kelly, which is you immediately picked up on, if I'm getting a realtor, I referral from a realtor and they instructed them to ask for a rate, I got a bigger problem. I haven't gotten my realtors on board here. And I mean, what it's so critical to have your referral partners scripted and trained on how to refer. I know that I used to go to them and say, hey, this is what my script I'm going to be using to talk about you. How do you refer me? And then that would usually flush out a lot of the big questions. Do you have any strategies for what you and how you work with your realtors?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you're saying, Renee, and that is having that face-to-face conversation and really educating them on why we used a cost analysis, our approach. We are not a low-cost lender. I don't believe that, and I don't really think that there's anything such as the lowest rate. I mean, what does that mean? The lowest rate for what, $12,000 in cost, the lowest rate with no discount points, the lowest rate on an FHA loan when really a conventional loan is a better option. So I really educate them because they don't get it. And so a lot of that initial kind of those meetings I have, even if it's a new realtor or a longtime realtor, I'm always bringing back the strategy of what we do and why we do it.
I love
because
it.
It's different for every person.
I love that the question came, what's your rate? And your first wasn't answering. You asked a question in response. You're, oh my God, that's wonderful. How long have you been working with so-and-so? And again, that's resisting that urge to ask a question and going into the relationship. So I think you remember that when you ask that question, it's okay to ask a question in return that really diverts the conversation over to the relationship, which got, like you said, fuels your value system, what you actually believe. And your frames that I saw you use were talking about the bigger context. One was, well, let's look at what determines a rate. You even said it just now, rate for what? Rate in this, rate in that. There's such a bigger question there. Programs is a piece of it that determines it. And then you said over time, which kind of triggered a question for me of something I used to do too, with somebody that also has had a mortgage in the past. I'd say, well, let me ask you, your last mortgage, did it bring you closer to or further from your financial goals? And I would just use that as to say, well, it brought me closer to. Well, great. How? What did it do? Or what do you mean it did? What do you mean I just was a payment? Now all of a sudden that's an opportunity to say, well, in 5 years, you're going to look at me and say, either got closer to or further from. Let's look at a bigger strategy. I love that. Anything you want to add to that, Kelly?
I think just on that note, Renee, that exactly for people that aren't first-time home buyers, let's dig back into, and I do this quite often in markets that appreciate, and our market is one of those, which is probably the whole country here. But, let's take a peek at their current mortgage, what they paid for the house 10 years ago, what the current market value is, how much equity they have there. And that is all built out in a cost analysis. So we can almost replicate that conversation with the stepping stone of what their next goal is with the next property, which is beautiful.
I love that. You can even say the last time you rented, did renting bring you closer to or further from? Just the question, whether they don't have an answer or not, I think will unveil so much of where their thinking is at. I love it.